Good morning. We'll call the Kennesaw County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. We're a little short-handed today as there was commitments made by others, so I'm going to be your acting chair today and ask you for a little indulgence and patience, as I could be a little rusty with this. So when both of our parliamentarians are gone, unless Corky's a parliamentarian. So
We got Shane.
before we do get on to the most interesting business, we got some bills to pay.
I'll move on the bills, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Commissioner Almond moves and Commissioner Berg seconds to pay the bills. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. We also have the minutes of the last meeting that need approval.
I read the minutes and I so move.
Mr. Berg
second
moves on
that.
the minutes. Mr.
I'll
Almond
second.
seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda, Shelley with Ellers is going to present a resolution for sale of bonds. Welcome, Shelley.
Welcome, Shelley.
Good morning on this soggy Tuesday. Yesterday at noon, we received in our office bids on the bonds for the Glacial Lakes sewer and water system projects. And we received 4 bids, which seem like not a whole lot of bids compared to sometimes when you guys got 20,000 bids. But if you, the winning bidder was Baird, and if you look at page 3, there is a whole list of cast of characters that are included in that bid. So they all joined forces to put a bid on the bonds. The winning bid was 2.957, and we had estimated a 2.76. So that's 66 basis points under what we had estimated. And we did have a little cushion in the estimate, like we usually do. But you guys, that's really, really good for 20 years.
Just as a point of clarification, you said your estimate was what?
We estimated 2.76%,
Okay.
and we received a 2.0958,
Oh.
which translates into $221,000 of interest, less interest that needs to be paid over the life of the bonds. So that's substantial difference. So the other thing I think we talked about when you called for the sale was the premium bid, that you could get a premium bid. And we did receive that. Normally, when we're doing bonds, we reduce the bond by that premium. In discussions afterwards and going back and looking at the files and the utility rate studies that have been done, and I think we touched on last time that there's a backlog of projects that the district has. And so in talking with Mr. Odens and Administrator Clendell, we decided that it's probably in the best interest to keep those dollars instead of dropping it because we have 2% money. If we don't keep the money and we drop it, in 2 years, we're going to need to bond for projects anyhow. They'll be able to move up $400,000 worth of projects and do them sooner instead of later. The project costs will be lower, most likely, as well as, again, we've got 2% money on it. So the debt service on the bonds with the amount stays about the same. So they're keeping additional money, they've got more money for projects, and their debt service fits into the utility rate study. And so they're able to pay for it without any issues. And that's on page 8, kind of shows the updated debt service and what that looks like. So it hasn't substantially changed from the estimates. So those are that's the really, really, really good news. The other thing I do want to point out is the rating. We had, again, another rating call, and I need to kudos to county staff for doing such a fine job. That takes a lot of preparation, and it can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable because it's like taking an oral final exam. It is an open book, but there is a little bit of tension that goes, and they did such a good job. And one of the things I do want to point out is that over the last few years, the county staff has been putting together policies and procedures to better fit into Standard & Poor's model for financial management. And they did put a note in here that they've revised their financial management assessment to good from standard. So the work that the county's been doing over the last couple of years with their policies and procedures has been noticed by S&P, and I want to highlight that's a good thing. That's all I have.
So, I would entertain a motion to accept the sale of bonds in the resolution 2019-44.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Commissioner Allen moves, Commissioner Berg seconds. Any questions or comments?
Just a question. With the bond rating, how does that process work as far as review? When there was a call on our bond? Our bond rating right now is AAA, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, this county's bond rating is a double A. And the AAA is the state's rating, because these bonds, because of the project, qualify for state credit enhancement. And so the county has the underlying rating of a AA, but the bonds were issued under the state credit enhanced rating of AAA.
That helped us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Berg.
A couple of comments. That you're talking about our rating and congratulating the county on good management. I think a lot of kudos go to Mr. Kleindahl, too. He's the lead person for us in helping make that all happen. The other thing, you say that, well, the county, we're saving $200,000 plus. Really, I want to say, am I correct in saying it's really our property tax people that are saving dollars, that our citizens, as a result, this is where the money would come from, if not. Would I be correct in that statement?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Berg, these bonds are being paid in whole from the utility rates of Glacial Lakes. So it will be the Glacial Lakes utility payments that are saving in the long run.
To be sure,
And
there
their-
are
and their
citizens, but
customers.
it's not the general taxpayers.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Okay, but
Correct.
it's our,
It's the users of the system, yes, the residents of the county
It keeps the
are
It'll keep the
benefiting
rates
from
down.
the lower
Exactly.
rates,
Okay.
correct.
Other questions? I would just say, from having sat on that commission now for 7 years, and especially the last 2 years, or maybe it's more than that, regarding the rate study and all, we were due for a break, and so I appreciate that, the news that you bring us today, and yeah, exactly, because it's been a challenge, as Chair Baker over there can testify to, that it hasn't been easy. It's a lot of work, and it's good to hear that we got this good bond sale.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The utility rate study went a long way in the rating call and the information provided. We had a refunding a few years back where it was prior to that hard work that was done by the commissioners on the board, the Glacial Lakes Board. And it was a fairly difficult call
Yeah.
because the numbers weren't as transparent as they are now. Now they're very transparent in the utility rate study, and so that, again, kudos to the Glacial Lakes Board and staff for their contribution to the process as well.
All right, thank you.
One other comment, I just want to compliment you on the presentation and the information you have on page 10. It gives a little, the summary of our county, the proficiency and the economy and the strength, and all the information that you presented in here was put together and compiled by staff, I'm sure too, the county staff. A very strong debt and contingent liability profile. I mean, you wonder why we're able to get these rates, and it's due to the economy in the area. And since we're over 5,000 population, that definitely helps us a lot too. But I was quite surprised by the rates, and I had a smile on my face last night.
Tell you what, I did a happy dance in my chair when I got them yesterday.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of passing resolution 2019-44, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Shelley.
He's got a question.
Oh, Baker.
Mr. Amdeck, question came up before the meeting regarding who could sign off on this, and Ms. Pierce was able to track down a statute and says if the chair or vice chair are absent from a meeting, all documents requiring the signature of the board shall be signed by a majority of it and attested by the clerk. This was statute 375.13. So all three of you would need to sign that and attested by Mark.
The one we just passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to do it right now?
And then,
All three of you would have to sign it.
thank you for looking that up.
Is that going to be Mr. Baker, is that going to be the process on all signatures required today, or just
Today.
this one?
All signatures.
Okay.
This one has to be signed today. The other ones can be signed when the chair gets back, but this one has to go with today, so. So I should write that statute down, I'll get it from you. Hopefully you don't have this happen very often.
No.
We'll give them a minute to sign and pass that around. Our next presenter is Megan DeShepper with MnDOT, and she's going to talk to us about the county highway improvement.
Capital highway improvement.
Oh, I was not even close. I knew it had to do with highways, but I still struggle with acronyms. Well, welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
For the record, you state your name and who you're representing.
Megan DeShepper, Senior Planner with Minnesota Department of Transportation, District 8 here in Wilmer. Usually Lindsay Brewer is here to present this information to you, and she's on maternity leave, so I'll be handling it today. May I
Welcome.
approach and pass out some maps?
Sure, absolutely.
I can help pass those out if you want. I can help you out.
Oh, they're different. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they look the same at first.
Thank you.
What's Megan doing?
Thank you, Megan.
You want a copy?
First thing I'm gonna look to see if the 153rd is on here. Or Gulfville Road. Yep.
Okay, so you have two maps before you. The first one is labeled ATIP, and that's the Area Transportation Improvement Program. That's approved by our local ATP and is then combined with others in the state to form the STIP, which is the State Transportation Improvement Program. So that's the first 4 years, 2020 to 2023. The projects on this map are commitments. They've been scoped. They're not as likely to change, so these are pretty much set as they are. The second map that I handed out is the CHIP, that's the Capital Highway Investment Plan, and that's those next 6 years, 2024 to 2029, and those are more fluid. Those projects might change a little bit, whether it be the fix, the limits of the project, and even the year can still change when it's that far out based off of funding. So I'll try to cover the projects in Candy-Ojai County for you and answer any questions you may have. So first on the 2020 to 2023 map, in red, number 1 on your map is in our county. On Highway 4, there's a reclamation project on Minnesota Highway 55 from the Candy-Ojai County Stearns line, and that's actually a D3 project. The Brainerd St. Cloud district will actually be leading that. Most of it is in their district and not ours. And then also in 2020, number 7 on your map in red, also on Highway 55, reclamation from the Candy-Ojai County Stearns line to the eastern Candy-Ojai County Stearns line. And that's also a D3, yes.
I thought that was being worked on as we speak.
This is reclamation. Maybe they're doing it this year, but it's funded next year? Could that
Okay,
be?
because there's some work being done up there, and
Yeah, I know, you're right, it is. I can verify that and
that's
let
okay.
you guys know.
That's okay. I know that there's sometimes shuffling around of funds from year to year.
Right. Next in 2021, so that's orange on your map, numbers 16 and 17. On Highway 71, there's a reduced conflict intersection at Candy-Ojai County Road 90, just north of Wilmer. And then they'll be doing a sidewalk at CASA 24 across that J-turn. And then US 7123, concrete rehab and diamond grinding from the north side of Wilmer to the Highway 7123 split. And that's northbound only. And then in 2022, so that's green on your map, and the first 5 projects are all in Candy-Ojai County. There's a lot going on here. In green, number 21, on Highway 9, install a mid-block crossing at the New London High School, New London Spicer High School, and with a median refuge island. And then number 22 on your map, on US 12, mill and overlay from the east Candy-Ojai CASA 1 to the east of Candy-Ojai County CASA 5. Next is number 23 on your map, also on Highway 12, a mill and overlay project in Wilmer from 6th Street to 24th Street. So that's like the old Domino's to the American, all through town there. And then number 24 on your map in green, Highway 23, reduced conflict intersection or J-turn at Minnesota Highway 23 and 9 in New London. And finally, in 2022, in green, number 25 on your map is Highway 23, the 4-lane roadway from Paynesville to Richmond, or the GAP project as it's termed, Corridors of Commerce project. And that's technically in D3, but our district will be handling that part of the project. Next, we jump to 2023, and in blue, number 39 for Minnesota Highway 23, the other 4-lane gap from New London to Paynesville, the south gap, that Corridors of Commerce project. So that's everything in the first 4 years for Candido County.
So Megan,
Yes.
2023 on the gap, that was moved up from 2024?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for 1 year, they'll be working on both, right, in 2023?
Yeah, they are going to lap a little bit. Yeah.
As well as the J-turn. That'll be an interesting summer.
Yeah, there's a lot going on
Sure is, yeah.
to see that many projects in a row.
Gonna have to build hotels just for construction workers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're busy. We're gearing up for all of this.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Things are happening.
Absolutely. So now if you refer to the second map I passed out with CHIP at the top, and there's a fewer amount of projects out there, but still some good things happening in Candido County. If you look under 2026, in kind of a brown hue, Highway 40 is being reclaimed from 277 to Wilmer. And then in 2027, that's kind of the pink salmon colored. On Highway 12, a concrete rehab and overlay west in Wilmer, West 11th Street to 6th Street in Wilmer. So that's kind of the second half in town from Domino's all the way to basically the base of the bridge by the Genuo plant. And that also includes ADA improvements. There'll be some new curb ramps to meet ADA compliance. And finally, in 2028, light green on your map, Highway 7123, there'll be a concrete overlay on 71. And now that they're doing that southbound leg that wasn't done 5 years previous, they're now doing the southbound leg, as well as from Highway 23, 20.25 miles west of Highway 23 to CASA 5, and the west junction of US 71. So that's both northbound and southbound. And that's everything in those outer years. Any other questions?
Any questions for Ms. DeShepard?
I have a question on item number
Go
15,
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. The reclaim
Are you on the CHIP map or the
Uh,
other map?
on the CHIP map.
Okay,
Item number 15, the reclaim and overlay from Minnesota 277 to Wilmer. I'm trying to recall, where's 277? I'm trying to get my bearings on that.
if you look on the map, it's in the, kind of in the middle of Chippewa County.
Okay.
there,
One CHIP with that, okay,
Right here,
all right.
so kind of midway, all the way through town.
When you use a reclaim, what do you mean by that?
So they kind of, they use that machine that kind of takes up the pavement,
Yeah,
grinds it up, and then,
Yeah, reuses it.
yes, yep,
Reclamation. Okay,
Correct.
gotcha. All right, thank you very much.
yep.
All right, well, thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
update.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2019-45.
I give it to you.
You did give it to me, but
I
where
did
did I
give
put it?
You need to right from there in your chair.
So, Resolution 2019-45, the resolution dissolving the Crow River Organization of Water. Whereas the Crow River Organization of Water, CROW, was formed as a joint powers organization by the approval of a joint powers agreement, a JPA, between 10 counties in 1999, namely Carver County, Hennepin County, Kandiyohi County, McLeod County, Meeker County, Pope, Renville, Sibley, Stearns, and Wright. Whereas CROW has pursued its stated general purpose of promoting the orderly water quality improvement and management of the Crow River watershed through information sharing, education, coordination, and related support to the member counties. And whereas the members of CROW now seek to dissolve CROW by terminating the joint powers agreement pursuant to Section 7, Part B of said joint powers agreement. Now therefore, be it resolved as follows, that the County of Kandiyohi, by action of its Board of Commissioners, hereby agrees to terminate the Crow River Organization of Water Joint Powers Agreement. That said termination shall be effective December 31st, 2019, or such later date as the Crow Board of Directors has approved of a final report confirming that all liabilities and obligation have been satisfied and that any physical or monetary assets have been distributed or disposed of in accordance with the wishes of the Crow Board of Directors. that as a part of dissolving Crow, the following activities shall take place. A, that all bills and obligations and liabilities of Crow shall be paid from any funds remaining on hand with Crow. B, that any obligation of Crow tied to grants or loans shall be satisfied by completion of activities and related thereto, that any physical assets or personal property belonging to Crow shall either be sold or shall be distributed to its member counties as per the wishes of the Crow Board. Number 4, that any Crow funds remaining after payment of bills and obligations incurred through December 31st, 2019 shall be proportionately distributed according to the current formula between the member counties. Number 5, that in the event that there are insufficient funds to pay all bills and obligations incurred through December 31st, 2019, the member counties shall be responsible for satisfying such obligations proportionately using the current formula. That all official records of Crow shall be retained by Wright Soil and Water Conservation District, Wright SWCD, with the understanding that said record shall be maintained according to the Minnesota's Government Data Practices Act and any other applicable state statutes. Number 7, that all financial records of Crow shall be maintained by Wright County as a fiscal agent for at least 6 years from the date services or payments were last provided or made, or longer if any audit in progress requires a longer retention period. All accounting records shall be kept in accordance with generally accepted accounting practices. These records are subject to examination, duplication, transcription, and audited by any member county and either the legislative or state auditor of the state of Minnesota pursuant to Minnesota Statute 16C.05 Subdivision 5. Such records may also subject to review by the Comptroller General of the United States or a duly authorized representative. If federal funds were used for any work under the Joint Powers Agreement. Number 8, that this resolution may be adopted and approved in multiple counterparts, each of which shall be deemed an original, but all of which shall constitute one and the same resolution as contemplated by Section 7, Part B of the Crow Joint Powers Agreement, adopted on August 20th, 2019 by the Kennesaw County Board of Commissioners, if we so do so. So, as a member of Crow, this has been a work that we've been, I think, is a result of the One Watershed, One Plan, North Fork One Watershed, One Plan. And we, about 6 months ago, maybe 7 months ago, the executive director of Crow gave us her resignation. And with the One Watershed, One Plan, really the work of the Crow and what we had been doing, and with the administrator leaving, we decided that it probably wasn't necessary to have the Crow anymore. And so that is the reason for this dissolution. And each of the Joint Powers counties will be passing a similar resolution, which when and if all are passed, and we anticipate that, then the Crow River Organization of Water will cease to exist as of December 31st. So I'd entertain any questions in regard to this resolution. Or a motion to accept it.
I'll move on the motion.
So Commissioner Almond moves to accept Resolution 2019-45.
I'll second.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion or questions?
Just curiosity.
Yes, sir.
As far as the anticipated, any anticipated debt that you can foresee right now, that's going to have to be shared with this?
No, there is a healthy amount of money in the Crow account at this point. It would be a shock, I think, if there was anything that would jeopardize that account balance.
Thank you.
Any
I
other
had a question with the Southern Prairie Community Health Program I talked about before, trying to close that down, that we ran into MCIT, that we were going to dissolve the joint powers on that. And basically, though, we had to keep records, we had to do reports from the state as it continues on. And thus, we decided not to close it down and keep it open, but just have meetings like once a year or something. Is there a concern with this setup about insurance coverage in case of a lawsuit or anything after we dissolve it? that MCIT would represent us?
That's a good question. We did consult with MCIT prior to going through with this process. There may be extenuating circumstances for Southern Prairie versus Crow. I certainly can't answer them, but
Right.
we did
You did,
consult with
okay.
MCIT, and so.
One further question, Mr. Chair. You know, with this dissolution, things change, and then the financial health was the most important thing because that any debt obligation would have to be shared between all the groups. In this case, this money is going to be coming back proportionally to the county. The question I have is, now that when this all gets resolved, I don't know how much it's going to be, but let's say it's 50,000 or 100,000. Can we as a county use, since the money was invested into Pro for water quality improvements, can we designate that into a proper account to make sure that it goes to water quality issues rather than going into the general fund? I know that's going to be, we'll probably have to prove that later, but I guess it's something I have a concern on, that if we can somehow use that for water quality issues in the county, if it's, rather than just going into the general fund, then it's gone, because there's another watershed, another one plan that we're going to have to allocate money for. And it's just a concern I have how the practice is, or has been the practice of the county in the past.
I can't answer the question to the funds that do end up back to the county, but prior to those funds coming back to the county, the Board of Directors of the Crow River Organization of Water can make some decisions on whether or not some of that money be used going forward with the One Watershed, One Plan.
Okay.
And those discussions are taking place right now, because we hope to, and plan to hire a plan coordinator to coordinate the entire plan with all the partners. I think there's 13 of us, including the Crow, but with all the partners coordinating, what projects get done. And so even our water plan, that portion that was dedicated to the Crow is now encapsulated in the One Watershed, One Plan.
Okay, right.
And Hawk Creek, I think we're going to hear about that at another point in this meeting. So this is the way it's going to be moving, and I think the pilot projects are now completed. And I think it'll move pretty fast now through the other watershed districts. So,
Great.
anybody else? Questions? All right, I would call for a vote on 2019-45. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So why don't you we'll just cross out, that was the board chair, and we'll have each one of you sign that then.
Okay. Oops. Well, that was a good segue, Corky, into Commissioner Berg, into the resolution, or into the update on Hawk Creek.
Well, actually, it's Erie.
Okay.
If you would, please.
Oh, yeah, I see that right here. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I should make note right up.
Miss Eric, would you, for the record and
Okay.
for the recording, state your name and who you're
Yes,
representing?
sorry about that. Eric Van Dyken, County Zoning Administrator. I should note right up front that Rick Reimer had planned to be with us today to just kind of help give a little update. And Rick was called in for jury duty this morning, so he expresses his regret that he was unable to be here with us today. So you may recall some time ago, came to you to have a memorandum of understanding approved, kind of establishing and starting out our process. Since that time, we've made some pretty significant forward progress with the Hawk Creek, Middle Minnesota, One Watershed, One Plan. We have been meeting consistently as a steering team. We've had several meetings as the policy committee. We've established our budget, our work plan, our bylaws. Most recently, Commissioner Berg can probably update you a little bit or talk about the process that he was involved in as a subcommittee to choose our consultant for the process, and we had a subcommittee, Commissioner Berg was on that, as well as Rick Reimer was on that as well. Rick bringing some experience from the North Fork process, so they benefited from some of his experience in that. We have had our first meeting with Emmons and Oliver Resources. That's our chosen consultant that came out of that process. And the steering team did meet with them recently. We had kind of our initial, you might say, kind of a feeling out process where we're able to talk to them about our expectations. They were able to talk to us about their expectations. We have since gotten from them a proposed scope of services, and the steering team again meets again tomorrow to parse that, you could say, and then give Chippewa County staff their instructions to help finalize the contract negotiation. So we're hoping to enter into a contract with them shortly. We do have planned some kickoff meetings, and you'll probably be seeing some publication of that very shortly. We will have one public kickoff meeting here on September 5th in this building, down in the multipurpose room. That will be an evening meeting with food, and we're going to have a climatologist in here to speak. Our consultant will be there, and we'll be hoping to interact with the public and get some real good ideas from them about their priorities, their concerns in the watershed. And then there will be a follow-up one the next morning, aiming for a little different crowd down in Renville at the community center there, and that will be a brunch style served there, and it'll be the same type of program offered there. So we're hoping to, again, start some publicity after tomorrow's meeting when we finalize our press release and those types of things, so that people can be aware of our public kickoff meetings, and hopefully we can get some real interest from the public to come to the meeting and see what's going on. So that's kind of the quick and dirty I have for you. Commissioner Berg can maybe add some of what his perspective is on where we're at right now.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this whole project. It's pretty awesome. But first off, would you maybe share with the group Hawk Creek, what area it covers and all involves, and why it's so important?
You bet. So the Hawk Creek the Hawk Creek watershed starts up here in Kandiyohi County, where the headwaters area, and the Wilmer Lakes chain, it comes through Eagle Lake and then through our Wilmer Lakes chain. It actually extends a little further up north of Eagle Lake into the George Lake area or Henderson Lake area. Can't remember exactly where the split is on the top side there, but it stretches all the way over into Chippewa County and all the way down to the Minnesota River. It actually encompasses other creeks that enter the Minnesota River than just Hawk Creek. So there's Timms Creek and a number of other creeks that feed right into the Minnesota River. And then in establishing this one watershed, one plan area, Bowser determined that there was a portion of the middle Minnesota watershed that takes up a pretty good chunk of Renville County, the Fairfax area, and going north, some of that area, that was very similar in the land uses and the needs, et cetera. And so it does extend a portion of there and actually goes over slightly into Nicollet County and Sibley County, who, as of this point, because they have small little areas, have chosen not to be part of the process. But so there's a lot of varied land uses, a lot of different partners that we hope to get. The one thing I forgot to quickly update there is that we are also currently forming our advisory committee. We're trying to pull a broad cross-section of citizens and ag groups and various interest groups, conservation groups, a broad cross-section we hope to feed in technically into our process as we plan, and to advise. They will be advising the policy committee on planned content and those types of things as we go along. So,
The whole concept is basically the one watershed plan involves Kandiyohi County, Renville County, and Chippewa County. There's two other counties, but there's such a small part of it that at this point they didn't want to be part of that. Anyway, we're the headwaters for this, and I think a lot of the planning that everybody's starting to recognize is that we really have to pay a lot of attention to the headwaters as we go through, but we want to have a plan that really will help the watershed through the whole system and everybody working together. And I think there's a good team and a good feeling about that, coming up with a good plan. The choice of Edmund and Oliver, to help head us up on this and help do the planning and facilitating. Is their strength, we recognize, was in facilitating. And there's really two aspects of it. Is Eric, you can help me on this one aspect of, there's a lot of information out there already about water quality, what's happening, a lot of research and so forth, but you have to dig through all that and come up with a plan. But you also have to facilitate with all the other players and get everybody on board to embrace this plan once we come up with it. And the idea is, hopefully, we come up with one plan for the whole watershed, and then figure out what needs to be done and set priorities for that, and figure out funding for that too. Not only as three counties, but also looking to Bowser or the state for grants to fund those projects as they come up, and also then looking at other aspects to who's going to help us with that. And we do have a Hot Creek watershed project, which is a different group than this, but we will probably be looking at them very closely, and they've been asked to be on the advisory committee. So we're feeling very positive about that. Did I sum that up pretty good, Eric?
Yeah, you did, and I think the one of the things that the steering team and the policy team committee got back from the subcommittee that did looked over all the statements of qualifications that we've got, and went through the interview process. They were impressed with Emmons and Oliver's ability to reach out and involve the public, and consensus build that way. So I think that was one of the strengths that they felt. We certainly have talked through the modeling that they're going to be using, and making sure that we're getting a plan that Bowser is going to be approving, that it meets all their minimum elements. And so we're hoping that we're well along the way to getting a good plan. We certainly have a lot of work in front of us, but we're feeling like we have some good momentum right now. So.
Well, thank you. Unless there are any other questions, we will excuse you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Certainly, as you mentioned, headwaters, Kennewick County is, while not the exact headwaters of all the watersheds, we're at the top of a lot of water. And so people look upstream and say, what are you sending us? And so we have that responsibility, and I think this is a good thing.
And
Thank you.
kudos to Eric and the steering team. They've been putting a lot of time and work in this. And one of the-
Eric, well, go ahead.
I really want to invite the public to this open house. This is very important, and we want their input, and so they're aware of what's going on as we go down with the plan to put it together. Thank you.
So Eric, we'll call you right back up for some planning and zoning items.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. From the Planning Commission meeting on August 12th, I have two potential action items here for you for conditional use permits. The first is a request from Matthew Barber. Matthew runs a plumbing company, and he's proposing to relocate his business center of operations to the Pulsifer Edition. It's a commercially zoned area behind, in the area of the Candy Power Co-op, that general area. Mr. Barber there would propose to construct a pole-type building and operate his business out of that location. The Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously with 6 attached conditions and proposed findings as are in the minutes.
So you've heard Mr. Van Dyken. I'd entertain a motion on that zoning application permit.
I so move.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and maybe you can give us the proper language with the findings and conditions.
Those, if you want to reference those as attached. that'd
Yeah.
be great.
All right, any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
The second is a request from Derek Nealand. Derek has a home site west of Highway 71, just up in the Hillcrest area. He's actually off the road by quite a ways, as a pretty remote location, nearly a half mile or more off the road. Derek proposes to be able to sell vehicles off-site. The ordinance does allow that in a general ag district, up to 10 vehicles. And so the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend with 3 attached conditions and findings as contained in the minutes.
I'd entertain a motion to accept that recommendation from planning and zoning.
Also move?
Commissioner Almond moves,
Second?
Commissioner Berg seconds. I have a question. Is he the same applicant for something on Highway 23 and across the road from the golf course in?
That's his brother Chad
I
that you
thought I had
just
heard that
approved
name.
not that long ago. Chad
Yeah.
and Derek have operated for quite a while on a property, as you near Spicer. It's actually owned by their brother, and that may be sold. So that's kind of the reason for the brothers kind of moving out to different locations a little bit. So
Okay, I felt like I recognized that application. So, any other questions?
Well, just a question on that particular item. I know that, people's right to use of property is the reason why we have, this process. Is there excessive, or do you think abuse in some cases? I see a lot of, there seems to be a reoccurring more and more vehicle sales lots along major corridors or very close to them. And are we maybe too lenient? And I just want to be cautious of this, that we don't set precedents for other business or types of businesses do the same thing. And then we run into a real predicament in the future. And I'm just a little cautious of it. I don't object to this at all. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that right now as far as the overall view.
I think I'd probably run a little interference here for Mr. Venda. You're asking him about a policy question.
Yeah.
We set the ordinances,
Yes,
with
yes,
the
I
work
know
of
we
it.
do.
And
But he sees it more than we do.
we haven't approved officially a lot of these recently. I perhaps see a little bit more the 1 and 2 here and there, like someone reselling something, and parking it out by the road. I've not seen myself a proliferation recently of this type of operation. In Mr. Nealon's case, he actually does the majority of his sales through the internet. So one of the questions that the planning commission asked him is, well, how's this going to work for you? You have zero visibility. He says, well, I don't, it's all out there electronically. He's going to have his all actually located inside a building. You won't even be able to see them. But certainly it's something to be aware of, development patterns, so we don't get out of balance on things.
Right, thank you.
okay, we'll move on. Thank you for coming in, Eric.
Call the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
No, did we call?
Oh, did I call the question? I don't remember. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I guess you don't need to be a parliamentarian to keep me on track that way. Gary, you have a nuisance abatement hearing.
Yes.
Camera?
Yes, I have some items that I can certainly
Okay.
include. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary Gear, Kennedy County Environmental Services Director, just presenting before you this morning a nuisance abatement that staff is recommending. This is a site located at 6050 191st Avenue Northeast, New London, parcel number 27744-0240. Initiated in early July, and technically it was early May, and then the property changed hands midstream, so then had to deal with a kind of a start over and deal with a new property owner. I can show maybe just a couple pictures here, Larry, if
Go back out here a little bit.
back out a
Gary.
little. This is just the kind of the front yard, as well as the side yard, and continues on around to the back as well. So it just kind of gives you a feel for what the property looks like. Sent out the initial letter on July 5th with the July 19th deadline. The applicant I visited with on site then on the 19th, he had actually hauled a couple trailers that I didn't show pictures of that were loaded with solid waste, garbage material. He was able to get those removed and was thinking that he would be continuing on with these items as well, but just has not made progress to date. I did go to the property yesterday again just to verify for sure that it didn't happen. So staff's recommendation would be to abate all nuisances, and all abatement costs incurred shall be assessed to the owner.
So, a couple of questions. Well, I'd entertain a motion first before I ask questions.
I so move.
Mr. Berg moves,
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Almond seconds on the abatement hearing. My question is, you said it changed hands, so who is this abatement?
This abatement is for Larry Knutson,
Larry
the new
Knutson.
owner of the property.
Who was the original abatement?
Lewis Cole was the.
Oh, this is this, okay.
Yep, was
Got it.
the first person I was communicating with. He was owning the property. Larry Knutson has been the renter for a long time and was on a contract for deed. And
I see.
evidently he closed
Okay.
that out.
Thank you for
Yep.
that explanation. And some of the items, so what is the process now?
The process would be, I would be in communication with the county highway department, and we would schedule a time for them to come and remove these items from the property.
Is there a period of time at which, I suppose, right up until they show up, where he can remove things if he
Yes,
wants?
correct.
Because when I saw the picture, there's a few items that I would perceive as being of value that, if it was mine, I'd want to have them out of there before they come in, but,
Yeah, and he may, it appears to be a tight budget that the property is working under. So whether he can get some of them inside or removed and get some value for them himself prior to us coming, I will certainly relay that with him.
okay. And how long will it be before the county?
Oh, at least a couple weeks.
Okay. All right.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As far as the condition of the home, is it fit for occupancy? Is that something that,
He is living in it. I have not been inside of it. And you can see by the one photo that it's partially tarped over the roof. He had talked about making repairs too, so it appears to be a struggle.
yeah, all right.
Is there a time when condition like this crosses over from zoning to public health? Regarding
Yes.
the occupant or the
Correct.
habitability? of
I
it?
believe public health would have to go there or be called to go there and do a, a care visit or a site visit and see what they could establish.
All right. Because I recall one in Howick that I think they call it red tagged, had been red tagged, so. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 11:50. We are quite a bit ahead of schedule. Do you want to take a short break?
Sure.
Okay. We will recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. We will reconvene this meeting of the Kennesaw County Board of Commissioners. Larry,
Mr. Chair, on behalf of Trish Appadorn, who's out on leave right now, and it's a minor surgery, here before you today to ask the county to accept a grant from the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs grant. This is a yearly grant that we get. It's for $10,000. This grant, the intent of the grant is for outreach for county veterans to assist in the reintegration of combat veterans into society, to collaborate with other social service agencies, education institutes, and other community organizations for the purpose of enhancing service offered to veterans. This grant is also to reduce homelessness among veterans to enhance the operation of County Veteran Service Office. So, Mr. Chair, I would ask the board to accept this grant.
so you heard from Mr. Kleindl.
I will so move on the grant.
Commissioner Almond moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Berg seconds. Any discussion? Hard to turn down a grant.
Yes,
All in favor signify by
especially
saying
for the
aye.
veterans.
Aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have each one of you again sign it. I'll have you sign directly on the one line. Just put your name all in one line. Right side by side.
I like being first because I can't really get it wrong then.
Just want to sign right there, and then Steve or Court can sign right behind you.
I marked it for you, Steve.
Okay.
So if it's wrong, it's on me. Right next to me. Right here. Welcome, Jeremy.
Good morning.
Says Mr. Odens, but you got the same haircut, but that's about where
Same
the,
kind of haircut, yes.
You want me to? Go ahead.
Good morning.
give him just a minute there.
Okay.
Next up on the agenda is Jeremy Pfeiffer in place of Mel Odens, Public Works Director, Assistant Public Works Director, in place of Mel Odens, Public Works Director, regarding the final payment and acceptance for, well, you're going to tell us.
I'll tell you. Yes, good morning.
Welcome.
Before you this morning is the,
Jeremy. Well, I announce who you are and who you represent, so you're good.
okay. Before you this morning is the final payment and acceptance for the 2.6 mile paved trail near Norway and Games Lake, adjacent to County Road 5. Give you a little background on this project. Bids were opened for this project last March 20th in 2018. They began work on the project August 24th of 2018 and finished it beginning part of October last year. The contractor for the project was Dunick Incorporated out of Prindsburg. The contract amount was $470,087.82, and the final contract amount came to $489,214.56. This was a federal project where Kennesaw County received federal funds in the amount of $345,762, which equals about 71% of the total contract price. What we've noticed since the trail has been built is that it's been heavily used this spring and summer. We actually had MnDOT put out their pedestrian and bike counters this spring. I believe Mel spoke about this at a road and bridge meeting here this past winter, this spring. But the counts on that were pretty large. In 10 days, they recorded 275 bikes and 527 pedestrians using the trail. That's a pretty large number, and when you drive out there on the weekends, you can see how much it's being used. It's definitely people up and down the strip there. With all that being said, it is the Public Works Department's recommendation to accept the project and make final payment to the contractor. Any questions?
You heard the recommendation of Mr. Pfeiffer. how do you wish to proceed?
I'll move on that, Mr. McKee.
Commissioner Amon moves,
I'll second.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion?
Question, the
Yes.
original was 470, it came to 489, $19,000. You want to explain just what those corrections were?
Yeah, we had two major items that were overages. I mean, every item, you know, is a little underrun or overrun, but we had two that were over. One was approximately $7,000 in concrete that we added a couple more pedestrian ramps along the way, expanded a few that go into the park, Games Lake Park itself, and then additional one, a little more concrete up at Highway 9, Trunk Highway 9. And then we had $12,000 in extra Class 5 that went with those concrete ped ramps. And then we overran a little bit to flatten out the grade on some of the trail to meet ADA specifications.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Jeremy. Do we have signatures you need, other than Mark? Okay. In that packet, or is this one?
There's 4 copies in the packet to mark right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to committee reports. And I lost my calendar on my phone, so I have to get another iPad out to see what my calendar did. But who wants to start, Corky or Steve?
I don't have much to report. You know, all the, all the wheels are turning, you might say, with Convention and Visitors Bureau, and our tourism committee is doing a great job with Beth Fisher there. And I guess I'm looking forward to the next quasi-governmental meeting, whenever that's going to be. Couple issues I want to bring up, but everything else is
I
on
can't remember,
track.
when is that? Do you remember? when-
I'm not sure when that is. I
We
mean,
had
it's
scheduled
next
it, but I
month.
can't remember.
I think it's next month.
September?
Which meeting are you talking about?
Intergovernment?
Oh, yeah, I got it on my calendar.
What date is that, do you know?
No, I thought,
September? Anyway. Yeah, 17th of September.
17th.
City of Wilmer is hosting.
Mr. Bergen?
all right. I had a Hawk Creek Watershed Project meeting, which is different. And one way to think of them a little bit is that they're more boots on the ground type of projects and doing a lot of different things or contracting out, arranging for projects to help the watershed. We had their meeting, and actually they're going to give a presentation the last board meeting in September, kind of an update. They haven't been to our board for some time, and to share with us what's been going on in our county. I attended some AMC training on open meeting law. That's always very interesting, very helpful. Also, conflict resolution and data practices. It was a very good meeting. AMC does such a good job. I had a meeting in Marshall with the Adult Mental Health Consortium and talking about the issues we have. And I've shared some of that really during the budget meeting too with some of the clients that we have, that the costs connected with them. We all attended I had a PAC-4 meeting. We had an emergency meeting. I won't say emergency, but we had to have a special meeting to approve a hire of somebody. And it's basically an internal promotion, but so that person could get up to speed right away. We all were at the budget meeting, of course, and what else? I had a couple other things I wanted to share with. Oh, the county fair too. Several of us were involved with the county fair. I worked part-time, or I worked at the census booth, and that was very interesting, and so have other people, as well as the Drug Free Coalition. They had one of the nicest booths there. They got a ribbon for their booth, actually, and that was very interesting, and it was good contact with people. I did oversee the Hot Creek Watershed Project booth. They didn't have somebody there, but they had a booth, and when I was out there, I kind of helped monitor that, as well as stopping in at the recycling booth, and I'd like to announce too that they also got a ribbon for their booth. And there's two different criteria, but the nicest booths there went to those two projects, or two programs that we help support or sponsor. So I guess that's pretty much about everything right now.
Thank you. As you recall, I was not at the first meeting in the month of August, so I didn't have any report there. So I'll go back very briefly to the second meeting in July that we had, since things that have gone since then. I attended a CPT meeting in Raleigh's Place in Morris. That seems to be moving along fairly well. We had an EDC Joint Powers meeting, second to the last week in July, which I attended. On the 30th of July, they had a wall breaking ceremony at the Green Lake Mall where the new daycare center is going in there. So I attended that. Then I was gone on vacation for a few days, and when I got back, probably the biggest thing of note, or you already mentioned the budget meeting, but I attended last week, Thursday and Friday, I attended the Association of Minnesota Counties Board Annual Strategic Planning Meeting. And a couple of things of note that came out of that meeting, and you'll be getting an update that I'll send out to the entire District 6 within the next few days or so. But we went through a process that was pretty interesting. We often have a position from the county, from the Association of Minnesota Counties, that not all of the counties are necessarily in agreement with. And probably the most recent one was the transportation funding. Everybody agrees that we need transportation funding. Not everybody agrees on how we fund it. And so we went through a process of an engaged process of how can we come to a resolution when we don't all agree on the same thing. When you use transportation funding as the example, and I took part in an interview process there. And then also out of that meeting, as you're well aware of, they addressed the issue of the procurement for Medicare, Medicaid, and how it might affect Prime West, who we just made a decision to join. That's a really serious deal. And the executive director, Julie Ring, is not very optimistic about whether or not the appeal will make any difference. She said, we appeal it, but she says, I've never seen an appeal go our way. So the likelihood that it ends up in court is pretty high. Personally, I think with all that's going on at DHS right now and the questions and challenges going on there may be a little bit of pressure for them to revisit something, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it. The other thing that was kind of interesting is Ryan Erdman, who a lot of you know, he attends our district meetings, has a position with the AMC involving county engagement. And not everybody is very good at attending county meetings, district meetings, affiliation meetings. And Kennewick County came out as the top county out of 87 counties for our county engagement. One caveat to that distinction is that we sent, or just about, nearly 20 people from Kennewick County attended the Opiate Summit a year ago at the fall policy meeting. Brought our numbers up perhaps a little artificially high, but we scored really high anyway. And so kudos to us and for making sure that we take part in that professional opportunities, not only as commissioners, but as our department heads and you as administrator, to encouraging that and allowing for that. So continued effort in that area. In fact, Mr. Erdman would like to visit virtually every county in the state to talk more about how we could be more engaged and perhaps be more effective. There seems to be an underlying belief that at the legislature, they can't seem to get anything done, at least in a split House and Senate, that perhaps if the counties can agree to on process and legislation, that we're the ones that can help get that done. So that's all I have. Oh, tomorrow I can report on it next time, but I'm gonna be attending the state AIS meeting. We're going down to the DNR office in St. Paul, and I think the commissioner of DNR will be visiting with us, part of that meeting.
I just want to comment on your strategic planning session that you had at AMC. Well, your comments about having the counties come up with the recommendations and priorities to the state, our state representatives, I think might aid. If we can gain consensus prior to, I think that's a good move. I always thought that was the direction of the AMC was going to be, is that how the process would work? But I've seen that now it's taken place, and I think that's a great move.
Well, one of the things that seems particularly troubling, and maybe that's why the transportation was used as the example, is that there's a perception, and I think it's based on lack of understanding. There's a perception that, in the case of the gas tax, that a lot of that money is going to go to the metro area, it's going to go for bike lanes, it's going to go for light rail. And the opposite is true. None of it's going to get used for that. And outstate Minnesota is really treated quite fairly in that formula. But it's outstate Minnesota that's fighting that funding mechanism the hardest. And so the only thing we can figure is that not everybody understands it. And I know from a personal experience and talking with some of my colleagues in the state, they don't understand that. So hopefully the AMC can help bring understanding to those issues. So, Larry?
Just want to remind everybody about our open house for the master park plan on Thursday from 4 to 6 downstairs. Hope you can attend, and there'll be a short presentation at 4 o'clock, and then after that will be a kind of information gathering session.
Yeah, and also our fall policy, I think most of you are already, if not all of you are registered at Arrowwood and in Alexandria. That is, 3 weeks from now, something like
Not
that?
that far away.
It's coming up pretty soon. So if you want to, as they say, either be at the table or be on the menu. So if you have an issue, be there. Yes,
Going
sir.
back to Larry's comment about the open house for the parks, a nice article in the paper today. Appreciate that.
Anything else to come before the board?
One other thing. One thing is, that we talked about the recycling at the budget meeting, and just a thought here, I guess we're informally discussing things, but brainstorming years ago, a lot of people were recycling products that used to go in the landfill, and one of those products was asphalt shingles. Asphalt shingles were used to melt down and be reused in residential driveways. Actually gives it a really nice look. I'm wondering what department or who we can send that to see if there's any local contractors that might be interested in leasing or taking, or see if it's profitable or not profitable. It might, rather than dispose them in the landfill, to help preserve the length of that. I've done some research on it, but I would think that might be something that could be a regional area for coordinating all this.
Sure.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Anything else? Then we stand adjourned. Lunch in the parking lot.